Okay, today we are going to work on this frozen gas valve on our GE downdraft profile gas cooktop. And what happens to these valves, sometimes you get some gunk down in there, or the thing gets knocked out of alignment or whatever, and then it doesn't want to turn. It's almost like the thing is set in concrete. It's unbelievable how the valve can get frozen. The first step is to take out the little screws on the top that holds this metal cover on. Okay, I've already done that, and I've unplugged the unit, and I've also turned off the gas, and I can just take this right off because I already took those screws out before I started the video. And we're going to need just a couple simple tools to work on this. This is a 3/16 inch nut driver. I got some Q-tips. I got some round wood toothpicks. I got some penetrating oil, or you could use like a Marvel Mystery Oil is my favorite, or a 3-in-1 household oil from your hardware store. Pretty much anything will work. I got a different various assortment of some different pliers here. My best ones are probably my Knipex or whatever they call them, and these are really great pliers. But if you just have some standard pliers, they should work. I have my little long-handled igniter, or you could use a butane lighter, and we'll use that later. And I got some white lithium grease. I'm going to work on this valve right here. Now, I've already done this, so this valve actually does work. But I'm sure if you're watching this video, you know the situation. You push down and you go to turn it, and it just feels like someone just welded the thing in place. It's unbelievable how it won't rotate at all. And let's get started. We'll just pull off this switch. That's the ignition switch that turns on the sparkers, and we'll just kind of push that over here and put it out of the way. And I think I'm going to zoom the camera in a little bit and get a little closer so we can see the valve. And it's kind of a trade-off because I don't want to get too close to where it's messes up the image, or I think that's going to be probably about as good as I'm going to get it. Okay. Now I'm just going to take my little nut driver. There's two screws in it. I'm going to hold down this top piece as I loosen these screws, because there is a spring under here, and it's not like a super powerful spring or anything, but if it pops loose and falls down inside there, then that's just another headache to deal with. And also, you want to be careful with your little screws. If they fall in there, they can be kind of hard to retrieve. Okay, so I took this piece off, and you can see that it has this little tab goes into this notch, and that's what makes the valve lock to where you have to press it down and then turn it, because otherwise it won't turn, because that little tab is locked into that notch. Okay, so that's piece number one. Number two is this little, I guess, 3/4 crescent moon shaped little metal disc, and you can see it has a collar on one side and it's more or less flat on the other, and that this collar here, it corresponds and it goes inside the inside part of this spring, and it's just the right size to fit in there. And also there's like a notched area, so when this is all compressed together, you can see that that little notch section will keep it from spinning, because of just the design of the valve in here, whatever. And then we have our little spring. It has two sides. It has a big side and a small side. The small side goes down. So your valve might be a little bit different. A lot of these units use pretty much the same components regardless of what brand they are, but yours might be different. So just as you're taking it apart, note how the pieces are assembled. You might want to use your phone and take some pictures as you disassemble it so that you can see what's going on later in case you forget. The next thing I want to point out is this little notch right here. You see we have this little notch, and this little tab on this piece engages that notch, and that's what makes the valve spin. It's right here. It's opposite of the outlet pipe is where that little notch is. Okay, I'm going to use my pliers here. I'm just going to grab this thing, and hopefully, I think it'll come out without no effort at all. But yeah, okay, because I already broke this loose. I'm not going to lie to you. The first time I did this, I did have to struggle with it. I did all these valves actually, and the first three were pretty simple. Then I got to this one, and it was like really tough. It just did not want to come out, and finally I had to get my big channel locks and just really grab the thing and just kind of twist it a little bit back and forth, and then pull it up, and then it finally disengaged. But the point I'm trying to make is, it's not necessarily going to come out because you asked nicely. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes these things can be wedged in there pretty good. And your next step would be just go ahead and clean your little deal here. Use your paper towel. I like to use my penetrating oil and put some on there and rub it around, and then use your towel and get off the excess. And then same thing with the interior of the valve. We'll use our Q-tips and we'll clean inside there, and we could put some penetrating oil on our Q-tip and use it kind of as a solvent to clean up whatever muck might be inside there. And it doesn't take hardly nothing because this thing is so precisely machined. You can see that this is kind of a cone shape, and you have the opposite. What's the opposite of a cone? Anyway, I don't know what it'd be called, but it's the exact opposite. So these two pieces fit together. They fit together so precisely that that's what makes it seal, and that's what gives it enough resistance to where it doesn't leak. Okay, so we'll drop that back in there. Now, also take your little Q-tip before you put it back together, and make sure you don't have like no little gunk in here. You can use this your Q-tip to clean out all the little recesses, and on top here you can clean it. Just clean it everywhere. You know, the cleaner you get it, the better. There's no such thing as too clean, really. Okay, so I'm going to do a little bit of assembly now. Now I have my white lithium grease. Okay, I just got slimed. Now it's real important that you don't get any grease inside the valve, inside the little cone piece that I was showing you. Yeah, let me show. Because we have these little tiny holes, and some of these little holes are so small that if you get just a tiny bit of grease inside of them, it's enough to clog it up, and then your valve won't work right. Because believe it or not, the grease is enough by itself to clog it. I'm going to put just a tiny bit of grease on this spring, and so that's because as I rotate it around, I want it to be able to rotate. And then I'm going to get my other little piece here, my little 3/4 moon tab, and I'm going to put a little bit of grease on there. Don't go crazy, just a tiny bit is all you need. Really, you don't need any, but I like to go ahead and put some, because as long as I'm taking the thing apart and going to the trouble of disassembling it and cleaning it and whatever, and then when I put it back together, I want it to operate really smoothly. So I like to go ahead and use a little bit of grease, just on the outside only though. You don't want to put any on the inside of the valve, because like I said, it'll booger it up. Alright, now this is a little complicated. It doesn't seem like it's complicated, but it is. The thing is, this little 3/4 moon thing has to go on there. And when you squeeze this all together, it all has to go together precisely correct, or else it'll pop out of alignment, and then your valve don't want to work right. It'll get jammed. And you just kind of got to feel it a little bit, and honestly, it might take more than one try. I've had a couple of these valves where I had to assemble and disassemble it several times before I got the alignment correct. And you see I'm holding it down here against the pressure of that spring. I'm trying to just get my little screw started. and you want to hold on the outside. You don't want to push down on the tab there, because that's gonna push that stem inside there, and it might mess up the alignment of your little 3/4 move disc, and your spring. It might not like you pushing down on that. So we'll get these screws tightened, and hopefully we'll get it all correct on the first try. And let's see. Now I'm going to put my knob on here and turn it. Okay, and it works. So that's it. It's done. Okay, now we're going to move on to our next step, which is to test it. I'm going to go ahead and do a couple of tests on here that I'm going to show you. I'm going to put all this stuff on this side real quick. And let's see here. I think for my first test, I'm just going to leave that off. And I'm going to turn the gas on real quick. In case I forgot to mention it, and I don't remember if I did or not, but you definitely want to turn your gas off and unplug the unit before you do this, because the thing is, when you take this this valve apart, if you still have your gas on, all your gas is just gonna spray out of there. Okay, so I have the gas on right now, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use my little flame, and I'm gonna see if this valve leaks. And if it catches on fire right here, then we'll know it's leaking. Pretty simple. You might say, well, that seems like a really dangerous way to test this. Wouldn't it be better to spray some soapy bubbles on there? See, you can't do that though, because getting water down inside there is probably what caused your problem to begin with. So you don't want to be putting water in there. And also, it might be leaking underneath, and even if you did spray soapy water on there, you might not actually be able to see the leak, because it's down in there and it's probably going to be pretty small. And I'm not going to go crazy with this. I'm just doing a little bit. And we can see that I don't see any flames maintaining on there, so I don't think it's leaking. I would say we're good to go. Okay. Okay, so we got that off. Now, I'm going to go ahead and further test this. I'm going to put my switch back on. And this switch has little notches which go, these little screws go on top of them. It'll pop right into these little screws. And you can see that the wires just kind of almost have a memory. It almost wants to go back by itself, because it's been in that position for quite a while. And then when we get it locked in, did you hear it snap? You hear it snap? And then that way that won't rotate. So when our valve rotates, the only part that turns is this little interior wheel, and that activates the switch, but the switch itself stays in place. Okay, because it's stuck on there. Now let's see, I'm going to go back to a wider angle. Let me see what this looks like. All right. And I'm just going to pop my cover back on there. And I want to make this video as short as I can without any editing, because I'm really not that great at editing these videos. So I'm just going to kind of put this in place. Okay. And then I'm going to stick my cartridge in here. Okay, you notice I didn't put the screws in, but I stuck the cartridge in there anyway. And should I plug it in here? I'm going to go ahead and plug it in. I guess those wires will stay out of the way. And then we will turn on our gas. Hey, look at that, it works. Okay, and now as they say, we're cooking with gas.